Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat, and here we are at the end of the year 2024. Now, over the next couple days, I don't know which order in which I'm going to release these videos, but I'm going to be making my best of list Toonami 2024 and my worst of list Toonami 2024, the top 5 best and top 5 worst events. This video will be the top 5 best events. This has been a kind of an interesting year for Toonami. There are some good things, there are some bad things, and in this video, let's focus on the good things. So let's start with the bottom here. The fifth best thing to happen to Toonami in 2024 was getting the Demon Slayer Swordsmith arc. One persistent concern people have with Toonami, definitely in this current era, is being able to get big name shows, or to be able to continue shows that we've had in the past that release new seasons. And this was one of those moments that assuaged a few people's fears for a little bit. Demon Slayer, of course, an absolute juggernaut anime in terms of its popularity, to the point where it's arguably competitive with One Piece in Japan as being like the biggest anime. And that's saying a lot. And of course, you had a Mugen Train release like a few years back, and that was, I think, the highest grossing anime film in Japanese history, and I think it was the highest grossing anime film also in the United States when it got an American release. I'm not 100% sure on that. But again, getting the Swordsmith arc was it's a pretty good sign in a way that, Toonami does have some relevance in the general sphere and that they can get a dub or two that's a big name dub, instead of it just being dumped on Crunchyroll. And that was a good thing to see, for the time being. The number 4 best thing to happen to Toonami in the year 2024 was its general ability, or really the willingness to think outside of the box. And I say this in terms of something I've been talking about for a few years now. It's like, well, Toonami's not making much, doesn't have much money. Their budget probably got cut by Warner Brothers Discovery. So get a little creative. Look to the past. What retro or older anime can you put on the block for a very cheap amount, and maybe people will flock to the block? And I am really referring here to the addition of Blue Exorcist to the block. A very out of left field pick. It was last on the block like a full decade earlier. People more or less forgot about it. I want to say I'm not 1,000% sure on this. I think I've heard about this, that there was the new season or like some type of like a spin-off from Blue Exorcist aired this past fall in Japan. So maybe that to bring people's minds to that. And ultimately, the ratings from what I can tell from it have been pretty okay. But really, and that opens up possibilities in the future. Who knows what we get in 2025? We might get another retro anime. I mean, again, we had well, let's go into number 3 because I was about to mention number 3 a little too early. The number 3 best thing to happen in Toonami 2024 was the beginning of Toonami Rewind. So you definitely get retro anime here. We got Sailor Moon here. We got Dragon Ball Kai for the 9 millionth time. We got the original Naruto here. And actually, the original Naruto actually in 2025 will be on the Saturday night Toonami block. And it's something nice to see, You don't get to see episodes of like again Sailor Moon anymore on television, like the early 90s episodes. And there was some controversy about the specific dub they used, and some people didn't really like that, but at the same time, the fact that the Friday checkered pass block was given to Toonami at least shows to some extent that there was some desire from Warner Bros. Discovery to give Konami a little bit of a go. Be like, okay, we have these and older anime properties that we can air. And anime is obviously growing and growing and growing in popularity. So how about we just use the Friday checkered pass block to highlight that and see what happens? And I've been using was a few times, and I'm going to go into that in my worst of list. Don't worry about that. But again, it's just nice to see Konami getting a little bit more of a shot, you know. As short-lived as it was, you know, it's nice we even had that in the first place. And now let's go to the number 2 best Toonami moment in 2024. And this is one I've been kinda dreading because I'm gonna eat a little crow on this one, and that is having My Adventures with Superman Season 2 on the block. Do I like the show? No. Do I think it's a good show? No. Do I think Lois is hot? Yes, but that's besides the point. But again, why is My Adventures of Superman Season 2 the second best thing to happen in Toonami in 2024? It's the ratings. It rated very well. Actually, I don't have the exact number, so I can't say anything definitively. It might have ended up being the highest rated show on Toonami in 2024. And when I cover my worst of list, which I'll probably post after this video, like the day or 2 days afterwards, I'm gonna go a little bit more into ratings. And certain shows I thought would rate well, but didn't. And again, in this video, I'm talking about a show I didn't think would rate well, but people did show up to watch. And this kind of reminds me of another old anime, well, not really that old, that kind of fits this category. Or not even an anime, actually. Genlock. I hated Genlock. The average Toonami viewer hated Genlock, but it rated well. And yeah, I mean, you got to give their flowers where it's due. And yeah, My Adventures Superman Season 2 rated pretty well. And there really weren't that many shows that rated really well on Toonami in 2024. So I have to put it arguably this high because of that. And normally, after number two, I talk about my honorable mentions. But here's a weird little thing. I went back to make this list. I go back and look at my older videos. I look at old posts on Twitter. I look at old posts on like the Toonami subreddit and stuff to see what were people talking about in 2024. And there really wasn't much news, period, good or bad. It was a kind of a samey year in a lot of ways. Like I'm reading this, I'm looking at this from like a Google Doc I've been keeping for the last few years where I posted like the 2021, 2022, and 2023 lists, and I list all the things I had ranked, including the topics I considered but decided to not include. Other years, I have multiple topics, both good and bad, I just didn't mention because I'm like, well, that's not a top five. And usually I just say, oh, that's an honorable mention. That's an honorable mention. And I have none on this list. And when I go into the worst of lists, there's exactly one honorable mention. Kind of a bit of anomaly. But without further ado, let's go. What was the number one best thing in my personal furry orange opinion to say would happen in Toonami in 2024? And that is, again, something I have to eat a lot of crow about, Ninja Kamui. Did you even remember this aired this year? I forgot until I looked back and I realized I talked about it in 2024. Yeah, original Toonami anime. And ultimately, if you look at kind of the end result, so let's mix together critical reception, fan reception, ratings, and whether or not Warner Brothers Discovery decides to write it off. And right now, arguably, Ninja Kamui ends up at the top of that pile of the most successful. People, I didn't like it personally, and if you watch my videos, you know that very clear, but the average Toonami viewer did seem to like it. Ninja Kamui, more weeks than not, did fairly alright in the ratings. The critical reception from critics was generally positive on it as well. And the fact that it's been months and Warner Bros. Discovery has not written it off for taxes means it's hit the trifecta, or quadfecta. So really, and if you look back at all the stuff in 2024, Toonami hasn't had too many highlights, and to have an original go on, not have controversy, which is a little nod to my worst of video, and have this critical reception, have consistent animation throughout, and you get everyone to like it. I'm gonna have to give it very, very high marks on that alone, and it's happened to be enough to make it the number one best thing to happen in Toonami in 2024. So what do you guys think? What was your top moments of Toonami 2024? Leave your comments and leave your opinions down below. I'm Super Orange Cat, and that is all.